If you've grown up around dysfunction, experienced abuse, or spent your life trying to be good enough, then this podcast will definitely land. Today's episode is with Alex Williams. Alex is a mental health practitioner who spent 20 years in the NHS and trains on suicide and self-harm prevention. But trust me, this conversation isn't a tips and tricks for well-being session. Alex talks about losing his mum when he was 8 years old. She was murdered by his stepfather. We talk about what happens to a child's nervous system when it becomes unsafe overnight in that way, why a genuinely safe environment can change everything, and how help sometimes turns into labels, waiting lists, and being bounced around a broken system. We also talk about things like compassion fatigue, phone addiction, the myth that you have to forgive in order to be free, and why meaning matters when life stops making sense. Trigger warning for this one, you're going to need to look after yourself while listening. There is references to suicide, murder, domestic violence, and grief, and honestly, a whole lot more. So do what you need to do in order to look after yourself, but ultimately, you'll take a lot from this podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Dysfunction is everywhere. In our families, in our cultures, and in our systems. And this is Dysfunctional, the podcast that helps you name the things that most people can or won't see. Let's call it out, break it down, and maybe even start a bloody revolution.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you for having me today.
I'm pleased to have you, mate. Actually, you're somebody I've been wanting to get on for ages, but with my scattered mind, what I want and what I actually do doesn't end up always meeting where it's supposed to.
Yeah, mate, you sound exactly like me, mate. A million things in my head to do and probably get about half of them done.
Yeah, you just get powerless and just do none of them.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, and this is not great podcasting for people that are not watching, what is the football shirt you've got on?
Boca Juniors, mate.
I thought it was Boca Juniors. Yeah,
mate, I love old retro football shirts, especially from the 90s. That's when I was like playing football as a kid. So like, I've just got into this thing recently where my missus hates it. She's like, "You're not wearing that on the weekend when we're going out together." But yeah, I just love them. So I was like, whenever I get an opportunity, I'm going to put one on.
It's sort of the same fashion again now as well, isn't it? And like the tops that the footballers wear today they're not as fashionable because they got to be all like really tight, right? And everything's baggy again, isn't it?
Yeah. I prefer baggy, to be honest. I did like the tight stuff back in the day, but nah, mate, not now. I'm too old for the tight stuff.
It's such a dad thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you make that transition from tight to loose fitting clothes. Yeah. Just because comfort becomes more important, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Oversized or relaxed fit all the way. Can't wear slim. Even like I was born in the era like where skinny jeans. Well, I guess being a teenager, skinny jeans and young adult was the thing, and like growing up then, and now I'm like, God, no chance. I put a pair on, I'm like, what was I doing for the 15, 20 years of my life?
I have no idea how I used to wear skinny jeans, as skinny as they were, you know what I mean? And they were proper, like, looked like they were sprayed on, you know, because that was the fashion, wasn't it?
Yeah. I had a friend who used to intentionally buy women's skinny jeans because they would be tighter than the normal spray on men's jeans. I'm thinking, mate, that's not good.
You know, they died when them poor lads got used as a meme. Do you remember that meme?
The four lads, yeah.
They got battered for that. They ended up, I'm sure I saw them on like This Morning or something trying to defend themselves.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, they probably made a bit of money out of it, didn't they? So
yeah, they probably did. That's the world that we live in, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was the death of the skinny jean. The skinny jean and the DAP, the white DAP that you had to wear with it as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I in fairness, I don't think I'll go the other way. Like I remember when it was like, see the youngsters now with their jeans like dragging along the floor, and I'm thinking, well, I remember what that was like as well, and that was a nightmare on a wintry day because like by the time you get anywhere, like water would be up to your knees, and you'd be like, I'll put up with this. But
that was my style as well back then as well. The baggy jeans. I had a pair of. Do you remember spliffy jeans? Did you?
I remember like desperate for them. I think it was just going in high school, and I remember mate asking my I think it's my dad at the time, and just going, "You got to get me a pair of spliffy jeans." And I think the look of disgust when he saw someone just smoking a spliff on the back of the jeans, you're like, I didn't know. I was like young. I was like, I don't know
I remember when they got banned at school. I was still at primary school when they come out. And I remember they got banned, and I remember I didn't really know why. I was like, I don't know why they banned spliffy jeans.
Yeah, no. I do now, but yeah.
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 I know very well now. Mate, before we go off on any more tangents, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are
Okay.
in the world today?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, mate. I hate introducing myself, but I'm, when you introduce yourself, it's what you do, isn't it? So I'm a mental health practitioner by trade. Worked in predominantly the NHS for 20 years. Essentially helping people to get back up when life knocks them down. I'm also currently a suicide self-harm prevention trainer, which is something I'm hugely passionate about. But also, I'm someone with lived experience and I talk a lot about the lived experience of losing my mum to murder, growing up in a household full of domestic abuse, and then my experiences post that of being raised by someone who pretty much ticks all the boxes for narcissistic personality disorder, and kind of the effect that's had on me and my life.
What would that have been? Your dad?
Yes.
Yeah. I paused before I said dad because I wasn't sure whether you would still call him that by the way that you was talking about.
I do, and it's one of those things I wrestle with because I don't want to, but then there's that part of me inside that holds on to the idea that he's your dad,
Yeah.
So so
quickly before we dive into the real heavy stuff, and I want to try and do that with in a way that makes you feel comfortable. What does when you say you're a mental health practitioner in the NHS, right, and you help people get back up, are you dealing with people in crisis? What does it look like?
So I've done it 20 years. So I've been in all sorts of roles, working from inpatient units to crisis services to I guess you could say working in A&E, and we call them place of safety, which is where the police may pick up people from the streets and who they think might be unwell but they're not willing to go anywhere, so they might take them there to be assessed, to working in the university, to where I'm currently doing is in primary care, which is GP surgeries, which is the best place, to be honest, to work, because you're at the front door meeting people before the system chews them up, or there's lots of good work that happens in mental health services, but I think equally, as I'm sure you're aware, there's some people can get labeled with loads of diagnoses and stuff like that aren't always that helpful. So in my current role, it's like GP based. So
if I went to the doctor and said I'm feeling down a lot, and he felt that I was struggling with my mental health, I would then go and see you.
100%. Yeah. Providing like I have capacity, as you know, in the NHS, it's a resource issue usually. So sometimes it might be like, well, actually, you're not that bad based on the information given to me that you need to see me. It might be that we send you to a well-being service. You might have one in your area. Most places do, where they offer like CBT essentially, and kind of brief intervention, stuff like that. But usually if there's a little bit more complexity to it, then I will tend to do the assessment and brief intervention and support. I mean, I say brief intervention loosely because that can last a long while for people, because often people don't fit into the kind of the boxes that people need you to fit to get the support from other services. It's a challenge we face, that many people face, getting passed on from team to team. So
and a lot of that's to do with funding pots as well, isn't it?
100% funding, resources, how it's spent. Yeah.
Because I did a lot in the addiction space, right? Less so now, but back in the day I used to do a bit in the addiction space, and in the end, as far as I could see, the only reason addiction stays like as this sort of separate entity from mental health is fighting over funding pots, really, which is like, we've got funding over here for addiction and funding over here for mental health. So they'll spend ages trying to figure out whether what this person's struggling with is the fact that they're drinking, using drugs every day, or is it because they've got an underlying issue. And I remember just being like, if they're using it every day, they've got an underlying issue. But it was funding pots, really. It was like, it was a debate over which funding pot was gonna fund it. Really,
it's really frustrating, because I still we have a term in mental health that they call dual diagnosis. Don't you heard of that? Where it's like they've got a mental health disorder or some description, some mental health problem and an addiction. And I still blows my mind that that's called that, because like you just said, I'm yet to meet someone who's struggling with addiction who hasn't got a mental emotional health challenges.
Yeah.
They don't just, no one really gets addicted to a substance just because they like it loads and want to have more and more and more.
Yeah.
It's usually been used to deal with something deeper than that, isn't it? So
Yeah, exactly. And there's nobody that's going, yeah, like, I have an amazing life. Everything is absolutely brilliant until 5 o'clock, and I just can't resist it anymore. And then I have a drink. But when I'm not drinking, everything is amazing. There's no problem. I don't know what happens at 5. Like,
exactly.
so the fact when I hear that all the time, it's the most bizarre thing. But I do feel like it's funding, right? And I'm probably asking you questions that you can't or shouldn't answer, but do you feel like some people in that space, in that profession, get lost because of all of these things, like funding things, and like even like the labels, which, you know, I've seen you talk about them. I think you're similar to me in that I'm not against them, but there's some nuance to it all in that as well. But in the charity mental health space, which is what I kind of, you know, have moved around in to a degree over the last sort of decade, I feel like I sometimes meet good people and they've just got so far away from, through no fault of their own really, so far away from the reason that they went in there, which was to, you know, be with people.
Yeah, I think the systems and the barriers that are put in place by them break really good practitioners down, because in an ideal world we'd have this amazing system where we'd be looking at maybe the challenges that people are facing as opposed to the diagnosis. We look at this. Obviously, you need to incorporate symptoms because you need to know what you're treating to an extent. But then you'll be looking at having like community-based stuff. Yes, you have one-to-one stuff, community-based stuff. You have flexibility in your approaches. But now that kind of service is going to cost an arm and a leg, especially when you're looking at spending public money. So often these people are kind of just getting burnt out, for maybe want of a better term, by the fact that you're kind of banging your head against a brick wall, knowing what people need, but realizing you can't deliver it. And this is why often you get people who are like, you know, in primary care, I know if you want, unless you've got money and you want therapy, for example, or CBT essentially, unless a charity is going to offer you something for free, it's a CBT or maybe a bit of counselling. So there's it's hard because you're kind of like, well, that's not going to work. You can't CBT your way out of poverty, for example. Maybe you can change your mindset to how you approach it, for example, which CBT could help with maybe. But you know, the issues that a lot of people are facing kind of tend to be social. Yes, there are. The way we think about our social problems matters. The way we feel about our social problems matters. But generally, these things are impacting people, and the things we need to help them aren't there, and it's just frustrating. It's so frustrating. I can see why people leave. You know, they think, sod this, I'm going to go do something else, because it's like, it's hard to see people, you know, who need help, knowing that you could help them, but you don't have the resources to do it.
Yeah. It's listening to you speak then, you know, when you talk about like what's needed, you need like a community led thing, and you'd have to, it's interesting, isn't it, that like, if you look at like youth clubs from say 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, like they were just youth clubs. We just sort of knew that it was right to give teenagers a space that was like for them, that wasn't teachers, wasn't parents, but it was around emotionally sort of available adults. We never framed it that way, but it was a youth club, right? And like, I'm not saying that you bring back youth clubs, because I don't know whether they would necessarily work in the same way today. But if they were to come back, they wouldn't be called youth clubs. They'd be like mental health centres, wouldn't they?
Trauma-informed mental health centres or something.
Yeah, because
the latest languages that, you know.
Yeah, because it would be framed through that, you know. And so like, I do think that it's bizarre to me that nobody, or people don't seem to make like the correlation between these things, you know, between youth clubs and things like that back in the day were just, it wasn't framed as like, we need this for kids' mental health. It was like, yeah, kids obviously need a space where they can go.
Yeah, a normal space that hasn't got any kind of ties or links to certain things that you're trying to do to them. It's just a space.
Yeah.
You know, and I think just to be a kid and have some fun. And I think I saw you post something a little while ago, and I really resonate with it. The fact that it was talking about how like maybe like kids meeting up over the park to have like a bottle of woodpecker cider or whatever we used to do when we were kids was probably healthier than just getting online and playing, some game or something, And I know that there's loads of people like, well, what is encouraging drinking? It's like, no, we're not encouraging drinking. We're encouraging socialization and normalizing that without any kind of, oh, you have to do this, or be this way or be that way, or making it all educational, or, like you said, it's just we forgot how to just be humans, I think, and it's like we're kind of, it's always education and turning someone into this kind of ideal person so they can be whatever we want them to be at the time.
Yeah, and I definitely think because it's often celebrated now that younger people are drinking less, right? And I mean, I've never looked into it, but I should really, because I wonder if people over the age of 30 or 35 are drinking more, right? Because I would say one of the reasons, and it's not a positive reason, that young people are drinking less is because their phone is enough escape for them at the moment. So like when I was a kid, I started smoking cannabis at about 12 years old. But if I had have had a device and online gaming in the way that you've got now, I might not have started smoking it at 12 because I would just escape continuously into my phone and not need it as much. But then I think the phone, as you get older, will become not enough, and then you'll just seek it later. I just wonder if it's being pushed back,
I think it is, and I think we just find other things to be addicted to that get normalized as healthy, but then we realize they're not. Like the phone, really good example. Like I know that this thing here, I'm addicted to it in a way. Like when I'm like trying to do a piece of work, and I'm like, actually, fuck this, I don't want to do this. Like, oh, it's a bit hard. My natural reaction before I'm even conscious of it, I pick up the phone, like, oh, I'm just scrolling through this. Probably watching a few of your videos and stuff like that, something like that, and like they're great, but like then you just feel like it's like, oh my god, and it's a numbing. You numb out to it, don't you? It's
totally, mate. I've got a phone blocker on mine now. I've got it is, mate, because I tried a few of them, and the one that I'm using now is it's called Padlock, and it's like a little plastic padlock, and the only way of unlocking your phone is by tapping your phone on it.
Okay.
And I leave it in the glove box of my car. And then my phone, all the apps that I don't want to go on, Instagram and all the ones like that, they're all blocked apart from between 8 and 9 in the morning, 12 and 1 at lunch, and then 5 and half 6. Outside of that window, they are locked and you can't get on them.
Yeah.
Unless you tap your phone on this brick thing. Yeah, padlock.
So I imagine like having it in your car, glove compartment or in the glove box, that's effort, isn't it? So that's good. So I imagine if you had it next to you, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go on that now. But
so
you have to have the thing away, so you can't just go and tap it, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is I've been using it for like 5 or 6 weeks now, and it is brilliant, right? It's been revolutionary, but in typical addict fashion, like if I'm in London working, I sort of need to be on Instagram a little bit if I'm posting in the stories. Like I was at a prison event this week, and you want to be posting it in your stories and stuff. So I take the padlock with me, but then for a day or two after, it stays with me.
Yeah.
And you're just unbricking it like all the time, and it's crazy.
Well, that's the thing though with addiction, isn't it? Like, or any kind of risky sort of stuff you're involved in. Like if I'm doing some stuff around, one of the things we do about self-harm, suicide prevention, and if we're assessing and working with people who are presenting with self-harm behaviors and they may be escalating, one of the things we're looking at is access to means. So, if we're looking at substance abuse, we're looking how available is the alcohol, the drug you're using, or how available is the thing you're using to harm yourself. And one of the things is, can we move that out of your vicinity?
Yeah.
So like sometimes we have to get other people involved in that if needed. But like when you do that, then the urge and the temptation to just engage in that one thing, it reduces, or it becomes more effort. So then we're like, oh, what, sod that.
Yeah. It definitely reduces it. I mean, it's the same old thing, right? I could delete the app on my phone. If I deleted the app on my phone, I could just get back on all the apps. But it is enough with my phone addiction, and I am terrible with it, mate. It's not good for the kids, man. And I mean, like people talk about phones being bad for kids. I think the worst thing about phones for kids is parents, and I'm talking about myself here, the amount of times I should be looking at my kids, and I've had my kids tell me far too often to get off my phone.
Yeah.
And like, you know, what message is that given to the kids, you know, about what you think of them and about their self-worth and stuff. And I'll tell you now, it happens too much for me. That's why I got the padlock thing in the end,
Yeah.
because it was doing it with the kids that was too much for me, you know.
I guess that's a challenge for you. You know, you got 6 kids and you're highly visible on a lot of social media platforms where you're like doing amazing work and you need to be on there. Like that must be even harder for you to be like, I want to be with kids. I've got this. It's like, yeah, I imagine I'm trying to imagine that myself. Yeah.
I'll tell you the hardest thing about it in that respect
Mm.
is mainly that I can use it as an excuse,
Yeah.
because it's very rare do
Mm.
I need to be on Instagram between 6 and 8 o'clock when I'm with the kids. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if
Yeah.
I am, it's addiction,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, what I would say is that if I didn't do this work, I would just delete them. I just wouldn't have them. I'd just get rid of them completely. I wouldn't have a profile and I wouldn't have social media. And
Yeah.
before I started this work, I didn't have it. I didn't have any of it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would go back to it in a heartbeat if I didn't do this work. But the flip side of that is what it's given me, you know.
Yeah.
Social media has given me, you know, a platform to do the work that I do. So I can't slag it off too much, you know.
No.
But well, I shouldn't. I can and do, but, but
Well,
I
you
shouldn't.
think you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't you? These days, you need pretty much any business needs social media to advertise, and even myself, because they maybe want to do a bit more outside the NHS. It's like I know I need to advertise on social media, so I would much like I'd like to just get rid of it all and just I don't need to be on it. Although I do like get quite nostalgic looking at old football from the 90s or something.
Oh,
like
I love
that.
that, man.
Like
Yeah.
that and stuff, or some old WWF wrestling thing, like when I was a kid.
Oh.
Like, I remember that was awesome when it was good. And I was like, but then or something hilarious. But generally, I'm like, when I'm finding myself get wound up by other people's opinions, and people say just the wildest of things, which seems to be the way now to get traction on social media. Just like,
Yeah.
like nah.
That's the worst thing, is you can be happily watching, you know, mankind go through the top of the cage at the hands of Undertaker, but then get hit with a video of something that really annoys you and winds you up, and then get hit with a sad video.
Yeah.
In the space of like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And I can be in a good mood and pick my phone up, and 60 seconds later I'm like, and I get hooked, you know, like even the sad ones will hook me in.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch a sad one and then I'll like, oh, I want more sadness, man. And then I'll like, you know, I'm searching for more sadness, and then the algorithm's like, oh, he's getting off on this sadness, we'll send him more sadness, isn't it?
Yeah. It's literally the whole range of emotions people probably cover through just one scroll session until it finds out which one you want to, which one it wants to latch onto you is mad. I don't think I've never really thought of it like that, but now it's got me thinking. I might next time tomorrow when I'm on there, I might see, well, I wonder what emotion I'm feeling for this one and that one, and just go through it, see what it does.
It's worth. I always try and do a bit of an algorithm cleanup, which is like spend a bit of time searching for like red cards from the 90s. And just watching them to just tell the algorithm, show me this stuff, show me stick to football, don't show me, you know, like someone talking all emotional, because it kills me, man.
Yeah, especially when you're working it. It's like, God, do I need that today?
I know. Yeah, then you get compassion fatigue, isn't it?
Yeah, very real problem. Very real.
It's very real problem. You know, I know. You know, and I'll always try and be as honest as I can. Like, I know when I've got compassion fatigue, when I'm going to an event and I am judging the fuck out of the people that I'm going to be supporting, and that's when I know I'm projecting, because I'm like, I love these people, man. I love supporting these people, and I'm on the way there thinking, if anyone gets you know, thinking that my problems are worse than everybody else's in the world, right? And that's always driven by compassion, or nearly always driven by that compassion fatigue. You must get that as well, mind.
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm kind of like, I find I'm either all or nothing person in the sense of, and I saw someone take the piss out of that in the sense that usually means people do nothing. But what I mean by that is like I get into spells where like I'm just so in it, and I'll see loads of people, and then I need like a chunk of time out. So like I tend to, if I'm structuring my week, so I do 4 days a week because I have a day for childcare, so I do all my hours in 4 days. I have 2.5 days of solid seeing people, and like, you know, 8 appointments generally face to face, and then I'm usually doing other bits around that, so it's really full on. And then 1.5 days of like any admin where I'm like sitting in front of a computer and I can like zone out and do bits like that. And I find sometimes, especially if you get a batch of people with really tricky situations where you feel helpless, but you want to help. You get it. You're sitting there and you're looking at, like, because obviously you look at the info before you see people. Some people, you know, right? So, and then you're looking at this situation, you think, God, you know, what am I going to do with this? Or here's this person who, you know, I really want to help, but I don't know what I can do here. And then, some people are so stuck, not because of any fault of their own. Often their situations are just, they don't clear up overnight. You know, some people are like, can't get into secure housing for a couple of years. And you're thinking, and they're therefore like feeling suicidal. And you're like, of course you're going to feel suicidal, you know, with all the other factors going on. And you're sitting there feeling helpless. And you're like, what can I do? And then you're like, oh. And when you get to that point of fatigue, you're like sitting there in a party. You're like, God, I just wish this person would just change their mindset. And it's not that. It's a mindset thing. But you're kind of thinking, I wish they would just see things differently, or this would happen. And so it's very real. It's not like we don't care. It's just that we have a limit to how much we can care before we start, you know.
Totally, man. And that's why I have to rationalize what I do a little bit, because otherwise it creeps in like that. And I'm like you, man, I can be at a social event thinking this is amazing, I'm loving it, and then just literally in a split second I can be like, boom, I need to go home. I'm like, I need to go home now. I need to get away from people. Where's the exit? I'm going, you know. I feel that a lot. Obviously then, well, not obviously, it sounds like you got into doing the work that you do because of your life experiences. Is that fair? Does it feel like the two are linked?
I do, but not consciously. So everyone assumes that I went into mental health because of what I went through with my mum. I'll be honest, I didn't. I literally had no idea what I wanted to do, like no idea. And someone I knew at the time said, you should go train to do like your nursing, because my mum was a nurse, general nurse. My gran was a general nurse. But they said, like, oh, you should go do mental health nurse. And they mentioned it because of your mum. And I was like, wow, I don't want to be a nurse. And to be honest, like, my dad definitely did not approve of it. But I was like, at the time they paid you to do it and I had nothing to lose. So I was like, okay, I'll go do my training.
Wow. So this wasn't like you know, I know what it's like to go through it. I want to help people. It was like a fucking means to an end.
Yeah, mate. I was still like, I was 21. I was probably still struggling with the idea that I wouldn't be a professional footballer. Part of me wanted to be a rock star. And I was like, I don't think even those two are going to happen. So I'm like, well, what do I want to do? You know, and I think, you know, my dad, he was like a high flying solicitor. He earned loads of money. So I was kind of always like thinking, well, I need to be at that level, right? I need to do something, because I couldn't think of anything or apply myself to anything that even closely resembled that. I was just like, but essentially I was trying to get his approval, and I couldn't find anything, and I just felt like failing, and I just did that. So I thought, well, I need a job. So, and they didn't pay much, but I didn't, you know, I was going to get a qualification end of it. And, you know, it was the best. I look back and I think it was one of the best decisions I made, because I loved it. But like, yeah, I had no intention of doing it because of what happened. It was probably my stuff later on that, yeah.
Do you think it's coincidence, or do you think there's subconscious shit going on there? I guess it's hard to answer, right?
I mean, yeah, I can't say a truthful answer, like, because I just don't know. But I think, you know, I'm quite a spiritual person. I think it's helped me. Like, I believe my mum is here with me, you know, guiding me. Like, and if that's even if that's delusion, it's nonsense, it's helped me, right? I don't really care. I wouldn't go on page and say everyone needs to believe their dead relative is with them, because I don't know, but it gives me comfort. But part of me, maybe the story I've created in my mind is that maybe I was pushed into that area, because my mum, like, I think, well, my mum basically before she died, she was a general nurse. And I remember hearing this story after she died, that she worked on a ward, oncology ward, so people who've diagnosed with cancer. And she used to basically, when there was she realised that when people were getting told, they were just told they had the diagnosis, they just had to go home. And she fought for them to kind of create a space, just a room where they could go once they've had the news, to sit with that, like a space. And I've been thinking about this more in recent years, and I think, well, that's essentially what I do, like create a space for people to talk about and explore their shit, you know, the bad stuff they're going through. So if I'm linking back to it, I kind of, in my mind, I've kind of got, maybe this is just not that I believe this, that our life's out in stone, but maybe there was some kind of nudge in the afterlife that's pointed me in this direction. And I think it was 100% the right choice, because when I think of the kind of person I am and my values and how I sit politically and what matters to me, I think, God, yeah, I just hate seeing people. Well, I hate seeing people struggle. I know struggle is part of life for everyone, but I hate let people feel like they haven't got anyone to talk to or have anyone to help them through it. So maybe, yeah, subconsciously, unconsciously, I was driven there. The story I tell myself is that probably my mum was guiding me. Again, I'm not telling everyone to say the dead relatives are guiding them, because that's not for me to say. But for me, that gives me comfort, and that's kind of the story I've kind of loosely attached to, because I can't think of any other reason. Because I think definitely wasn't at high school going, I want to work with like people with like mental health disorders or stuff like that. That would never even crossed my mind.
I like what you say about the feeling like your mum's guiding you, and I can hear you sort of letting people know that you're not sort of trying to push that ideal on them, or pretending that you believe it to be an absolute truth. But I think that like, where we're not driven by religion anymore, right? Sort of as a culture in the UK, at least, right? Not massively driven by. I do think that we've lost some meaning in our life, right? And I'm not a religious person. Whether or not you think it's a good or a bad thing that religion no longer sort of, is at the helm, so to speak, is a debate for another day. But I do feel like we've become so materialistic in that, like, if we can't measure that your mum is guiding you, then you're stupid to believe it, or it's just some little fantasy that you've made up. But when I think about some of the things that have helped me the most, particularly in the last 13 and a half years, I can't scientifically prove any of them to do anything. And I would probably argue that most of them are placebo. Even like when I'm, I don't know, taking like a mushroom coffee, right? I don't mean magic mushrooms, but like a lion's mane or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have these things where I get them and I'm like, I'm going to try that. And it works for 2 weeks because I want it to, and I believe it's going to.
Yeah.
And then it kind of wears off. And it's just like, I do feel like we've lost a bit of that, that ability to allow people to have that. And I think that hyper-capitalistic science has got a hand to play in that. And I think that we even try and push it on other cultures now, like, I remember reading about how when there was a tsunami somewhere and we sent Western therapists over, and there was some of it gives an example of a woman that's lost her husband and her 2 children. And the Western therapist goes to her and says, you're going to be experiencing, post-traumatic stress. And she says, no, you don't understand. In my culture, they've gone to a better place. They've been taken to go and do something better in the next life. And the Western therapist diagnoses her with post-traumatic stress disorder off the back of what she says, because she's clearly delusional, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, in many ways, there's no more proof that what we have, the way we're framing it is more correct than the way they're framing it. And I know people will cite a bunch of things and brain scans and but you could find brain scans that light her brain will light up in a certain way when she thinks about going to another planet, right?
Exactly.
Or whatever she believes. So, like, I do feel like in the West we've lost something, and I don't know how you reestablish it. Would you agree with that? With what you see on the front line?
100%. 100%. I'm a firm believer. Yes, okay. We generally work in an evidence-based way. I'm not able to go and say, by the way, we're going to refer you to this shaman who's going to do this practice, by the way, because so it's in this video, and apparently he heals people by getting their bodies to shake wildly or something like that. I would never do, that probably works for some people. I can't do that. But what I do is say it's up to you to discover what's right for you. Of course, if you're doing something that's very risky and dangerous, and I'm not, I'm talking about really risky stuff, like, then I'd probably be like, no, you shouldn't do that. But I'll give an example, and similar to yours, I saw someone who's really struggling with grief. And, they were trying to rationalize it for ages. They lost someone who died by suicide. It was awful. And they just couldn't fathom it. And they were struggling, and they did have symptoms of post-traumatic stress. But I always remember this moment. They come back and they just said, I kept hearing noises in my house, and you're thinking, obviously, mental health practitioner might be thinking, God, they start hallucinating again, psychotic. And then I probably, because of my spiritual beliefs, I was kind of sitting there. I wasn't like thinking, oh, they're psychotic. I was thinking, I wonder, okay, what is this? So I got them to explore further, and they basically just said they just come to the realization that they believe their person's with them and they're supporting them. And they said they had this dream and they got told they were okay. The person who was deceased was okay, and they just said, I just feel so much lighter. And I was like, who am I to tell you that you're mad or you're wrong? If you're feeling better and doing better, then I can't go, well,
Yeah.
Just because someone hasn't done enough research and evidence it's worked. So what if it's a placebo? So what if you've just tricked your mind into feeling better? If your life becomes better because of that, then that's okay. And
yeah,
and I think I agree with what you're saying. I think we get a lot of meaning from believing we're part of something bigger. Religion used to give that. I think there's a lot of, I do also agree that religion maybe taught us some things that are wrong, like around forgiveness, that I know you struggle with. But like, I think generally, like for most people, if you look at the people who go to church, like in England, for example, they generally look happy and are all supportive of each other. And I've met people who go to church and they're just lovely. They look like they're having a great life. And even if they're just deluding themselves into thinking life's better because they're going to go to see God and Jesus, again, who am I to say that's wrong, And I think you're right. And I think I was reading recently that young people are starting to go back to church, are starting to go to religion because they lack maybe that community and that purpose in their lives. And
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening. Look, it's like anything, isn't it? Right? It's like all community things as well, right? Once you create a community has then becomes very vulnerable to becoming a cult like community, right? And we've talked a lot about addiction already, but I can tell you that the most addictive thing is power in many instances, right? And I even know, and I talked a bit, quite openly about this in the past, that as I've grown a community and stuff, you have to be so careful because it's so alluring to like just be the leader of it, and like, when people start putting you on a bit of a pedestal, it's easy to not check yourself, because so you have to. So, but I can see how, cults and communities get, and I'm involved in 12-step recovery communities, right? And there's pockets and parts of that's amazing and does amazing stuff for me. And then there's dark and kind of parts of it that you don't want to get involved in, because that's kind of what happens when you get peer-to-peer communities, right? That at the core they're good, but they're always vulnerable to, of course, abuse, right? Because abusers will go there because they're the perfect place. So it's very nuanced.
I do think like you're probably good. Social media and all this sort of stuff is probably going to cause a rise in levels of narcissism, isn't it? That kind of I'm important, I'm better than other people. Even myself, I've had to check myself, and I'm not even close to the level you're at, mate. But like when you get some good feedback from a group of people, your ego kind of goes, oh yeah, look at me, what I'm doing. And I had to remind myself that, come on, Alex, it's not, yes, you may be providing a space, but actually it's the individuals themselves who are doing all this work, isn't it? And it's easy. Like, I think with influencers and stuff like that in the well-being space, you've probably got a whole host of people who can't wait to get on, like, I don't know, Jay Shetty's podcast or something like that. But then if you look at a lot of those people in it, I'm sure they're lovely people, but equally, I start getting into conspiracy theories and just think they're all a cult. Just they're just there to try and get money out of people. And
I meet a lot of people that look great online and are not great in person, and I can make myself look better online, like when I always say there's a certain level of performance when you're online. Like if I'm having a bad day where I think everyone's a prick, right, and they happen, them days come when I just, like we talked about earlier, it could be compassion fatigue, right? I don't make a video where, well, I'm closer to doing it nowadays, but I wouldn't make a video where I just put the camera on and say I think you're all pricks, right? I think you're all fucking stupid. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't, but I have days when I think that. Right. So it's I like to think I'm giving as close to an honest version of myself as I can, but it's still curated. Do you know what I mean? And then people change around you, mate. I don't care if anybody wants to admit it or not. I've gone from having no following, like everybody starts off to a big following on Instagram, right? Particularly. And people change around you. and you have to navigate that because they do, and yeah, like I say, you have to, I guess, continually try and humble yourself and not run away with it.
Yeah.
You start to believe you're impressed, and I've done it, mate. Make no
Yeah.
mistake about it. You start to believe you're impressed, and you become everything you don't want to be. You know, you have to keep pulling yourself back from that.
I guess in a way you have to avoid it becoming an echo chamber, don't you? Because I guess if you get, you know what it's like. Some people just say whatever comes out of someone's mouth, they'll just agree with it without even thinking about it because it's who says it, you know?
Yeah.
And this is why I find I don't really have any heroes, because I can usually find a bit of arsehole in every person I work with, probably other than like Robbie Fowler or Steven Gerrard, because I'm a Liverpool fan. But other than those, generally like.
I was going to say I'll help you if you want. No, I don't. I'm a Swindon fan. I've got no beef with you as Liverpool.
But honestly, like generally, like I sit there, even in like people who I think are really do some good stuff out there. Like I'm like, oh, but I did that wrong. Oh, maybe not, you know. And then I'm like, oh God, don't go down that, Alex. And but like, yeah, I think you have to be mindful. I think I try to realize that we're just all humans. We're dicks sometimes. We're good sometimes. Even those influencers look amazing and be dicks sometimes. Try not to be too judgmental with them unless they're like intentionally trying to manipulate people, you know, which there are a lot out there, unfortunately. But yeah,
and that's where they end up normally on a platform like that. I want to talk a little bit about what happened with your mum, if we can.
Yeah.
How old were you when this happened?
8 years old.
So you was 8. Were you close with your mum? Sounds like you were, the way you talk about her.
It's difficult. I think I was, but I wasn't. Would it'd probably be helpful? Should I just tell the story of how it unfolded and stuff like
Let's
that?
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, grew up, you know, like mum and dad married. Got a younger sister. I think I was around 3, 4. My mum and dad split up because my dad had an affair. So we split up. I lived with my mum. Used to go see my dad every other weekend. My dad had, you know, worked in London, had loads of money, so it was amazing going to see my dad every weekend. It'd spoil us. And then I spend the rest of the time with my mum. I think my mum probably had a closer relationship with my sister because she had higher needs than me growing up. Nothing too bad, but she, you know, so I think maybe I wasn't as close as I felt to my dad, but I was still close. You know, I love my mum, you know, didn't want anything to ever bad happen to her. But I think because of what happened with my dad, she probably ended up finding a new partner who was like obviously abusive. You know, we soon moved into with him, and he had kids as well. And just used to the house. I remember like watching him beat up his own kids, thinking I'd be next. I remember standing on the stairs one day, looking around down in the living room where it was happening. I was like, you know, froze. I was like, oh.
Fucking hell.
So it was kind of like I lived terrified with my mum. I was terrified living with my mum and always wanting to get out and just wanted to be around my dad or grandparents as such. But anyway, like my mum did leave a couple of times and we stayed with my grandparents. And, you know, when I was there, I can remember my stepdad being around the corner, like in his car, just waiting for my mum to come out. I think he was just stalking her and looking out the window thinking, oh, God, I just don't want anyone to go out. I was terrified. But my mum went back. I think my mum was like, you know, people used to say my mum saw the good in people, often would feel sorry for people and stuff like that. So she went back. And we went back eventually. But then like one night I was just like woken in the middle of the night, sleeping in the same room as my sister, even though I had my own bedroom, because now when I think back that I was just terrified of being in my own bedroom, my own. And police come in, they took me and my sister and my step siblings at the time to a police station after putting us in one of the big meat wagons. I had no idea what was going on. And these I think it was about 4 or 5 police officers sat us down and just told us, me and my sister, that my mum was dead. Now, we didn't know what happened, but obviously my reaction is just like meltdown, just burst into tears, you know, like you would expect a child who'd just been told that parent had died. So yeah, I was 8. And then that night, I think I just my brain just went switched off because I don't remember anything until the next morning and just waking up in a children's home. It's only there for a day. But then my dad come and pick me up. So, yeah.
And what had happened to her?
I was so sorry. Yeah, I only told you. So the a few weeks later, oh, not even a few weeks later, I was taken to my grandparents, and we turned out that my stepdad had killed my mum, strangled her while she was in her bedroom. Obviously, I didn't hear anything of this because I was next door, so it must have all been, we were asleep. But yeah, from what I understand, he contacted the police to let them know what had happened. So yeah, so she was killed by my stepdad.
Fucking hell. And so you went to a children's home the next day?
At the night. So literally, I think it happened. I woke up in the children's home. So I think it must have been, because again, this is like, my mind's just blank. It's just like, I think the shock of hearing that,
Of
I must
course,
have just like went blank. And then I remember waking up the next day, walking into this children's home, and there was like loads of kids there, and there was like a pool table, and I think I remember having like fish fingers or something like that, something random. And then all I remember is then getting picked up by my dad and him looking at us like he only had a 2-seater car, which is weird because we got 2 kids. But anyway, like we were sitting in this front of this car, and he's looking at us like, what, he had tears in his eyes, and I'm like sitting there like, yeah, this is like weird. But I can remember, like, because I'd like grown up before my mum dying, desperate to see my dad every weekend, because like, and escaping it. I remember part of me thinking, oh, I get to live with my dad now. It was really surreal because it was like so many, like,
of course, man,
polarized emotions. Like, I can't get to live with my dad now, but oh my god, my mum's gone, and who am I? I'm like, I'm damaged now. I'm a kid I don't know any kids who got whose mum's murdered. What kind of future can I have? I remember that kind of going around in my head, in the way of obviously an 8-year-old, because I wasn't thinking too much, but thinking, God, I'm fucked in a way, but not because maybe my dad's here. I don't know. Really conflicting.
And then how was like the next piece of time? Like, did you get support? Was you given?
So basically what happened, my dad was working in Chelsea in London because he was a high flying solicitor lawyer. He had a 1-bedroom apartment there. Again, got kids, so you got a 1-bedroom apartment, but so again, this probably feeds into the story later on. But he put us in my grandparents' house, who lived in Southend. Basically, they looked after us for 9 months. So he would still have us when he wasn't working, but like, and he had another house up in Suffolk where I live now, and we would go up there. But I literally to this day put the support, those guys, this grandparents, what they did for us in that 9 months, I think probably prevented me and my sister like having like severe PTSD.
And is that his mum and dad?
Yeah, his mum and dad.
Yeah.
So his mum and dad, like proper old fashioned, they're Essex, the book from East Ham, London, Essex. They've moved to Essex. They literally just used to like, it was just like a safe place. This is why I'm so into like creating safe people, having safe environments to go to, and recognizing that actually a lot of trauma will just resolve itself if you're in a safe environment post that.
What does that look like?
And
what does that look like, a safe environment? What was it, if you could describe it?
For me, I think it's feeling like you can be, it's simply, the simplest way I can describe it is feeling like you can be you, however that shows up. And nurtured and just given the basics to what you need. So obviously you've got roof over your head, you've got like food, drink, you've got people there to relax you. I remember my nan used to often sit at night tickling my back to help me go to sleep. So you think of that touch, that soothingness, I was kind of always been told, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe, you're not in this anymore. And I think my nervous system and my body was like, okay, we're not in that anymore. So I think, and there's again, simplest term is I was able to be however I was being. I wasn't like, oh, you shouldn't be like this. I never remember having any of that from my grandparents. Maybe that's just because they were soft or whatever. I'm sure I was a little shit, because I was definitely as I got a bit older. But that kind of, I could be me. I remember playing my toys, kicking like one of these old like metal like gates into the driveway, made a hell of a noise. But I used to boot a football next to it all the time. So go bang, and I think the neighbours next door must have been like, "What the hell is going on?" But I never got told off or any of that. It was just like you kind of do your own thing, and I wasn't like messing around. Or it was just like being a kid doing his thing, playing football, playing my toys, watching wrestling, things like that, watching the football, and it was just like I could just be me. And I think that did wonders. Like that kind of safety, just be me and feel held. Emotionally, yeah.
So simple.
It It's simple, but it isn't it? Because we know that a lot of people aren't able to create that environment for people, and that's the problem we have. And I think in today's society, where people have more, it's more stress. They have experienced more stress getting their basic needs met. That means they're less present for their kids or whoever's struggling, which makes it harder.
Were they both retired?
Yeah.
That's massive, isn't it? Like, there's one thing there, right? They're just there all the time. They don't have to worry about. I'm sure they had worries, right? That I don't want to make assumptions, but they're not worrying about paying the bills. They're not doing 10 hours a day, stressed to fuck, and then having to come home and deal with it. They can just be there with you,
Exactly. Yeah, we know, don't we? Now, like, if you look at what it takes for a household now to have their own house and pay for childcare, everyone's got to go to work. So a lot of people having to work 2 jobs. Back in that day, one person had to go to work, the other person would stay at home. My grandparents were able to comfortably retire because they had good pensions. My granddad was in the Navy. He also worked in like the water board or something. They had good money. They only had a little bungalow, which was fine, which probably didn't cost a lot of money because it was like the early 90s, and they'd been there a while. So, that created the freedom for them to focus on us. And that's basically what they did. I think it gave them a lease of life in a way, because it gave them some, they would just focus on us. But that.
Were you upset a lot? Do you remember like crying a lot or not?
Sometimes. I think initially, yes. I remember like having some really weird nightmares. I remember one time waking up in the middle of the night. This is probably after I lived with my grandparents, and like banging my head against the wall in the middle of the night, and it was almost like, and just waking up going, what the hell is that about? But in tears. But when emotion wasn't really, I talk about being safe to be me. I think it was more, I never really felt like I was that emotional in that sense, probably because I could just be happy and explore and do the things I needed to probably process that. But beyond that, I knew that when I was upset, when especially around my dad, it wasn't supported. It was kind of like, well, you shouldn't be upset.
Yeah.
There was quickly, again, if we're moving ahead in my story, after I lived with my grandparents, we went to live with my dad. We moved to Suffolk.
So that was like after 8 months, right?
Yeah. So basically, Mum died in October 92. Summer of 93, we moved to a village outside in Ipswich. And my dad, I think he had the right intentions. My dad had money. His idea was, I'm going to get this big house built for you. We had loads of land, had a football pitch in it, eventually had a swimming pool. So outside, to everyone in the world, like, fuck, this guy's landed on his feet. Didn't have any of that stuff before. So it's kind of like, I think my dad was, I'm just going to plow this money. I don't know if he got any from my mum dying. I have no idea. But suddenly we had all this stuff. So, in a way, it looked a bit like a paradise. And it probably felt like that for the first couple of years. I was like just doing my own thing. But I think as the reality, as I started to grow, and the reality of what I'd experienced kind of used to sink in more, and you used to say, like, ask questions and about what happened to my mum, and maybe I miss my mum and stuff like that. It was very much met with, because I've been given all that stuff, well, you should be grateful, And I remember, like, this is really messed up, and it blows my mind that I didn't really think about this until much later. I used to get told, like, most dads would have left their kids in orphanage, and that used to be what I get met with.
I can so imagine that as well. I can fucking so imagine that, yeah.
And I used to get met with that whenever I used to feel, let's just call them challenging emotions. If I wasn't like the good boy son who's just, oh, you're the best, oh, this is amazing. If I was like, oh, you should be grateful, get over it, and so it was never spoken. To be honest, it was never spoken about in the household, never. It was almost like it was something that you could tell on certain family members. And I don't say these people like toxic or anything. I think it was kind of, they just didn't know what to do with it. But, certain people were, but these people just didn't know what, and you could tell they're looking at you like, you've lost your mum. Like, you must be like hurt by that. And I was. But it was never something we spoke about. It was like something that just brushed under the carpet as if, it was okay. And I think I convinced myself I was. That was part of the problem as I grew older.
So when did you struggle? Did you, did you have obvious struggles? Was there, like, I don't know, drug misuse or, some of the stereotypical stuff? Not necessarily.
I think football kept me away from that, in a sense. Don't get me wrong, as I got a teenager and became an adult, I got into that. But I think because I was playing took my football so seriously, and I think that helped me cope. I kind of was like, nah, can't do that.
Was you playing at a high level then, was you?
I was good at like locally. Yeah. I was like playing
Yeah.
for county and having a few trials of teams, but I mean, I'm only like 5'8". I was, I missed the Lionel Messi era. It was all like big Tony Adams, Sol Campbell.
Yeah. You have
like
to
that.
go
And,
through
like,
puberty at 11 as well. That's
yeah,
all the ones that like got into the academies when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Massive guys. And I remember thinking, shit, how they got through? But then you're like, okay, fair enough. So that helped me. But I think I did struggle with school in like concentration and stuff like that. Hyperactivity. I have got a diagnosis of ADHD. I do relate to ADHD. I didn't think it was all my trauma, but I think the trauma I experienced and kind of was also coming out within that. So I found school really difficult. But it wasn't until basically from that point, as I've already touched upon, I went into mental health nursing because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I basically spent up until the age of 8. I was desperate. I basically played the person who would hide away and occupy myself because I wanted to be away from my trauma. And I idolized my dad. When I got to live with my dad, I then became the person who was present for my dad and just looking for his affection and approval. I probably spent all my teen years, 20 years, early 30s, waiting for my dad to say, "Come, I'm good enough," or be the dad I wanted him. I'd be the dad I wanted. And it wasn't until my mid 30s where, despite trying to seek his approval but failing constantly, I think I found my eventual goal in life was because I was failing at all this was, if I just get a partner, like get a roof over my head, like get a mortgage, that sort of steady job, then I would have finally made it. And I think when I was 35, I was engaged and I had a mortgage and stuff like this. And I remember the relationship just ended. It was
Well, how old are you now?
I am 41.
Fucking hell, you look good, mate.
Mate, thank you. Everyone says that.
You look very good, mate. I had you fucking way younger than that, and I'm talking 10. I'm talking minimum 10 years younger than that.
Mate, everyone says it, and I love it. So carry on, mate.
Yeah, you lucky bastard. Yeah.
I'm one of these guys. When someone says to me they're like 35, and I'm like, God, mate, you look like 50. It's like, you've had a hard life. I've had a hard life. I don't know what. Must be just genetics, mate. To be honest, I don't know what else it is, but no. But I got to 35, and I think I put this thing on a pedestal that was never really a pedestal. Is what I was settling for. And then it was like the relationship ended, and I just became, I'd never been suicidal in my life. I'd always spent my career thinking, well, look at this person. They're like psychotic. They're section. They've been detained. They've been pumped full of medication. Look at me. Like, I've been through this, and look at me. I'm all right. And I think basically what I've been doing for years is running away, because obviously I weren't allowed to talk about it, then seeking the approval of my dad and stuff like that. I've just been running away from everything. And I think that goal of, okay, I'm going to get married, own my own house, and just have a steady job didn't materialize. I was falling away. I was like, fuck, what's the point? And at that very moment, well, not that very moment, because I was suicidal, and I was thinking, just drive my car off the road here while I'm going to work, or thinking like, I'm going to go get a rope, I'm going to hang myself. And I'll be honest, like, if it wasn't for my dog, like I had a dog, he's still alive, he's 14 now, just the thought of him like seeing me or being on his own or going to some shit owner just kept me going. But eventually, after a little while, and I think I don't know if I talk about this a lot, and I hate it when people have these like light bulb moments and they say suddenly their life changed. But because I was doing my job and I was finding it very hard in mental health, because I was getting frustrated, like the things we were talking about earlier, because I was thinking, why are we getting to people too late? If we could teach people how to face the setbacks we all experience, like heartbreak, failure, stuff like that, bullying, loneliness, then maybe they might be able to respond to things better in the future. Kind of idealistic stuff, because I know it never works like that. No, unless you're in it, you're not really there, are you, to listen about this stuff. But I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And again, I'm very aware that he's an outlier. Most people who were Jewish in World War II are probably extremely traumatized by it. But it was his book, Man's Search for Meaning, it was a quote like, everything can be taken from you, except your ability to choose how you respond, your ability to choose your own way. And I think at that time, something just went off in my mind and made me think, shit, every year, basically ever since I've been born, all I've been doing is choosing for other people, choosing to seek the approval of other people. I've never chosen anything for myself. Even when I was playing football, it felt like it was becoming something that my dad could just go, yeah, my son plays for the county. My dad's son's having trials, you know. So I felt like I was more like, even though I loved it, but I fell out of love of it because I felt like it was too much pressure. It became that. And then it was like, oh, I have a choice here. And again, it wasn't like that my life changed, but suddenly that set me off on a cascade of decisions. One of them being, I need to look at how this is all affecting me and how this is playing out in my life. And yeah, here I am today. I tell you what, it hasn't been smooth, and it's been wild. And there's lots of things I wouldn't advise people do, but yeah, that was kind of that was the moment where it really affected me. But the moment where I was like, right, something needs to change here.
Yeah. And how does your life look today? So what, we're like 7 years on from where you were at the lowest.
I think so. Initially, so what I realized is, and I didn't realize at the time, I got really into like my spirituality initially when I read that Man's Search for Meaning book. Kind of got into a lot of the new age stuff, and I think I kind of was still avoiding a lot of the pain, because a lot of the new age is just positive thinking, isn't it? Right? So it's like
there's a lot of bypassing out there.
Forgive those who hurt you and just think positive, which already was essentially what I was doing. It's like, forgive the one who murdered my mum, my dad, forgive them. Yeah, that's easy. I'll just think positively, don't have to deal with it. Now it's much better because I've realized that life doesn't have to be this big abundant thing that many of us are taught to go for, that actually, like we kind of spoken about earlier when we were talking about youth clubs and stuff, I think life's really simple when you realize actually what you need rather than what you're being told you should need or should want. Like we said about the materialistic stuff, I think a lot of people are chasing purpose in things rather than connection to things, you know, like connection in relationships or what actually excites you and gives you life meaning. And I think now, you know, when I think life is really, you know, it's never perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm healed, but I'm saying I'm probably in the best place I've been in the sense of how I feel about my life. You know, I've got a daughter who she gives me so much purpose. Like any problems I had before, I was like, well, you know what? Okay, I can't really think about them. Obviously, you don't need to shut away your own stuff. And maybe I'll find out that maybe I've invested too much in that and forgot myself. I don't think I have. But it's got me that. I've got a good relationship. I don't feel the need to go out and do all the stuff that I am doing on social media. It's now that I want to do it. And that's a massive difference. Whereas I think for a long while, it was like, if I don't do it, I'm still not good enough for my dad. Whereas now I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to say what I want to say. If it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't, then hopefully I've helped someone.
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I know that we're all just one crisis away from everything just being, you know, tipped out the bucket and like it all some old wounds unravel, and I'm like, I could be back at square one. I'm fully aware of that, and I could just start engaging in like unhelpful behaviors. But I like to think that where I'm now, it wouldn't go quite as catastrophic as that, depending on the circumstance, of course.
And your daughter's fairly recent, isn't it? Am I right?
Yeah, so she's 22 months, nearly 22 months.
So nearly 2 years, Wow. And did you always want kids? Was there a part of you that was like, I don't know if it's something I want to do because of what you experienced?
So I did. I think this is a weird thing. So when I was young, 100%. Like, I think I used to fantasize about, because of what I went through, having this ideal family.
Same, man.
And I used to be like, I just can't wait till I'm a dad and I've got kids around. I can love them and have Christmases. And like, you know, just everything will look perfect. As I got older, like I still wanted it, but I think I got such into like the party lifestyle, like going raves and stuff, because I don't want to let go of this because I love this. I'm having such a good time. But when it happened, like it wasn't like we were kind of, me and my partner were very much, we want kids, but we're like relaxed about it. We're not like constantly trying. We're just going to be, and it just happened. It was like, it was like, it was straight away like, oh, okay, cool. And like, I think for dads, and I don't know if other dads experience this, mums obviously get that connection straight away when they're like holding it. I get it, like when they're growing it. And like I was excited, but equally I was like, you know what, I'll wait till it comes. But as soon as she appeared, I was like, fuck yeah, this is it. This is it.
Man.
And I was like, and it definitely changed my perspective even more on my relationship with my dad, because it made me think about the things he did, and I thought, looking at her, thinking, no, fuck you. Like, how could anyone hurt a kid and deny them their needs and treat them how you treat them? You know, like how? So now, like, again, I'm a very compassionate person. I spoke about this recently, but my compassion to child abusers and murderers has kind of gone out the window. I'm like, no, fuck you. Don't care what you've been through. You know, like, I don't care. Like, we know pretty early on that you don't do wrong. You don't harm children. So like, there's no excuse. And I think, like, so not love and light.
But it's funny, man, because a lot of these parents throw at me online, just wait till you have kids. I mean, when they say it, they don't realize I've already got 6 and a couple of them are adults, right? But I'm like, having kids makes me disdain, have more disdain for abuse. It doesn't make me think, I could see how you would abuse a kid. Now I've got one, I could see how you'd abuse them, right? It doesn't make me think that at all. It's the opposite. It's like, oh my God, like there's something wrong with you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I get it. Like, people have been through stuff and I know how the mind works, but there's got to be a part of your mind that goes that no, this is wrong. And therefore I'm like, and when people, and I do think, again, probably like when you're thinking of how mental health and emotional health, how our approaches have changed over the years, the pendulum tends to swing one way or the other, and it usually swings a bit too far. And I think sometimes with the whole trauma stuff, which I'm fully on board with, it's kind of like now sometimes becomes an excuse for people not correcting their basic toxic behaviors. And like, we go, oh, what? And I found myself doing it, hurt people. What has my dad been through? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Wonder what the person who murdered my mum has been through. And I'm like, no, fuck that, like, you've done wrong. And I don't need to forgive you or anything like that. You just done wrong. Your behavior is disgusting, and there's like no excuse for it.
So you don't forgive the man that killed your mum?
100%. I tried to when I was doing the New Age spiritual approach. I think I probably told people that I had, but I hadn't. And I don't think you need to. I think a lot of people say, like, what really annoys me about forgiveness is you'll get people say, oh, you're not free unless you forgive. And I'm like, no, actually, you're not free if you have to forgive. I can live a good life and not forgive. I accept that this situation happened, it was shit, but I do not forgive the person, and I can live a bloody good life because I'm not going to let that hold me back. There'll be times where I'll think about it and think, you piece of shit. There'll be times of that where I think, I wish my mum was here. Every day I think about my mum. When I think about my mum, I'm like, I wish she was here because my daughter would have a grandma, hopefully be an ideal grandma. Yeah. But none of that stops me from having a good life. And that's what annoys me about that forgiveness stuff. You don't have to forgive.
Do you know if he's still in jail?
I have no idea. I've had no contact since that day. It's one of those things that you sometimes walk around and think, God, I wonder if you'd bump into them. I do avoid certain parts of the UK, only very small parts, because I'm like, well, that's where it happened. I don't want to go there. I don't want to, just in case that's where they went back to. But I have no idea, and I don't want to.
Yeah,
I do worry that. Well, everyone says this, don't know what you would do if you saw them. I probably wouldn't do anything because I've got my little girl. The consequence of that, but you sometimes think, God.
Yeah. And I'd imagine if I was in your shoes, I was going to say I'd imagine you, but I imagine if I was in your shoes, I would fantasize about all sorts of things that I would do to him, right? But that doesn't mean that I would necessarily do them because of everything that we just fucking talked about.
Exactly. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Because I know right from wrong and stuff like that. Yeah. And so the reason I asked, by the way, was not to sort of pry, although I know it's a sort of podcast and that's kind of the nature of what we're doing. No, but like I was asking because I know that, and maybe it's different because he wasn't your dad, right? Yeah. But I know that often if one of your parents kills your other parent, the rights that the parent that goes to jail still keeps is insane. Yeah. And it gets so, like, when they're going to come out, if you as the child say, I want to know when I was going to say dad, it normally is the dad, right? Yeah. That's just the reality. Yeah. When's my dad who killed my mum going to come out of jail? They can say, we're not going to tell you because we're not going to tell you where he's living or where he's going to be or anything like that because he has human rights. But as the dad, he's allowed to know where you are. You don't get any protection, and he does. And did you know this as well, right? If I'm 13 and my dad kills my mum, and then I go and live with my nan and granddad, my dad still has 50% parental responsibility, and that trumps everything. And he gets to have a say on whether I get to go and live with my nan and granddad. And now, if you took it to court, you would obviously win. But the fact that you would have to go to court, and it's not just, there's something called Jade's Law, which they have passed, but it's not been implemented yet.
It's mad, isn't it? Like, because I'm aware that when my mum died, I think there was some argument about, I think my mum wanted us to go. I'm not 100% sure on this. Wanted us to go with our auntie, but obviously my dad had the rights, and obviously my dad hadn't done anything wrong then, you know.
Yeah.
So we would have gone with my dad, but I think, it blows my mind. Like, we know how much trauma and stuff affects kids, and how like toxic parents and abusive parents damages children, or hurts them to an extent where they find it really hard to move forward in life. And yet it seems like the obvious thing we could do is just remove that toxic parent away from the environment, or say they can't see him. Yet it's like, oh no, they have to do something really bad, really, really, really bad. And it's like, no, it blows my mind that we can't, there's not more protection. But how you govern that again, when we've got less police, less resources these days how do you stop, like, there's probably loads of them out there that are doing this stuff, and they're allowed to just abuse their kids, men and women, it's like,
and that stuff that you were saying about the past trauma getting used, you see it now as well with, like, it was trauma for a while, but now I've noticed in a lot of the content, people coming on, and what does this mean? I exist in my own echo chamber, but I see a lot of people now defending people by saying they've got some kind of what do we call it, like autism. You know what I mean? Which I talk about how that is like, I'm like, I know loads of people that are autistic, and they're not abusive.
No,
do you know what I mean? And it's like a distinct, it's like, just like it's it's awful to people that have experienced trauma to say that, he became a murderer because of his trauma. In the same way, it's awful to say he did it because he was autistic. You're like, it's fucking. It might play a role. These things may play a role in a big, wider picture, but you can't let somebody off the hook for stuff.
No,
just
I agree.
Because of that,
Yeah, I agree, and I do think it's partly that the kind of, we live in a lot. Everyone's like now become a psychologist, aren't they? From TikTok and social media, they know attachment theories and all that sort of stuff. So they can lay talk about it till the cows come home. But I think it's just gone a bit too far, really. I think some people are just assholes. And that, yes, they've been through stuff, and and they'll never change. And yes, I get it. In my job, everyone who comes in the door to see me who wants support, I approach them with the idea that they will change, because everyone does have the capacity to change. But some people are just so they don't want to, and they're too scared to look themselves in the mirror and go, you know what, actually, I'm a terrible human right now, and that scares them.
And we should always be thinking, how do we help you? How do we help you change, right? If you're the victim in that moment, it's like, how do we help you change or grow and evolve through what you've experienced, right? Not like, fuck the perpetrator. Like, I am a bit like that. I'm like, he murdered your mum. Like, fuck him. I don't care what happens to him for the next 10, 15 years. Like, let's put all of our energy into supporting the victim. Like, I'll question anybody who would hear a story like this, and then and their first thought would be to say to somebody like you, have you fought forgiveness, or was he really a bad man, or just did he do a bad thing? It's like, fuck me, man. Like, what? Like, is that even relevant? I don't. No. It doesn't hold relevance. It doesn't. And what I would say to you, and I'm a little bit conscious of time, but it's like, you are proof. You are proof to me, particularly in having spent the last hour or so with you, that you don't need those things, and you can be a good person and live a good life, because nobody can listen to you and watch you, if they get the opportunity to watch this, and not see a very grounded, rounded, good human being, right? And so you're proof, man. You're proof. And you're proper proof. Like, I'm not proof, because I'm fucking manic and I'm shouty and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? But like, you are like, I don't know why I had to throw a bit of self-deprecation in there, but like, you are proof of it, man, to me. And like, I'm not just saying that for effect for the podcast. I'm saying it because genuinely, having listened to you for the last, and like, I sort of, I don't know if I could say I know you, but like, we've seen each other online and engaged with each other online and stuff like that. But mate, I think you're a fucking very, very, very good human being, man. Just from if I'd never have met you from the last hour, I'm a little bit like blown away by you, to be honest with you. Genuinely. And I'm not blowing smoke because I don't do that for the crack.
Thank you, mate. It made me feel uncomfortable because I hate being told. No. But, you have to throw it back to you, mate. The feeling's mutual, though. Legend of what you do. I know you gave yourself a load of. You're like probably the most genuine person I see out there doing the work you're doing. And I have a massive issue with online well-being culture because I meet when people like promising like, oh, well, this will heal your trauma. And they're selling these products, and when people talk about trauma-informed care, and they go, "Oh yeah, but you could buy my package for like 500 grand or $2,000." I'm like, you realize the people who are most impacted by trauma, the ones who barely have any money. Yeah. So when I see what you're doing, you're making it accessible. You know, you're not over-promising. You're just creating safe spaces for people to discover it on their own. That's what we need. So, mate, it's right back at you, mate. Like, yeah, and I look up to you, mate. I get a lot of inspiration from you. So,
thank you, mate. I appreciate it. Bit of bro love to bring us to a close, mate. Honestly, I'm disappointed by the time constraints on my end, actually, because I feel like we could have talked. I mean, we could have done before we even got into your story. We could have done an hour and a half, I think, just talking about the fucking state of the world and shit like that. But mate, I really appreciate you. Is there anything you want to share before I close this down? Like, where can people find you? Obviously, I'll share all of that in the notes and stuff, but
I'm not too bothered. Like, follow me. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. I just want people to just realize that they're not the problem. The problem's the problem. You know, and try and be gentle with yourselves because life's tough, but it's still a good life out there for you. So
you're a good man. Thank you, mate. I mean everything I said. This has been incredible. So thank you.
It's a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
I did tell you it would be dysfunctional. So thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.